Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number, I believe it was 21. 21 of the massively popular, of Virginia's for Conspiracy Lovers podcast. I'm joined tonight by my buddy, Jordan Ramey of the forthcoming book, Shakespeare is.
Climate change.
There it is. I knew what it was. I was just giving it some drama,
Oh, sorry.
because it is by far my favorite name for a title for a book I've ever heard. Shakespeare is climate change. Jordan's been sending me chapters as he gets them done, and I think I told him on the last podcast that we did early on, like I was like, "This is my favorite book I've ever read." Like, and I've read a lot on these subjects, man. And so I can't wait until he can get this thing published and finished and published and whatnot. But we're excited to have Jordan with us tonight. I'm sick as a dog. It's been a little bit longer than I wanted to between episodes, but um, because I'm sick, I'm gonna try not to run my mouth quite as much because it causes me to cough. But so I'm gonna let Jordan kind of take it away, and we've got some visuals for you. So Jordan, tell everybody maybe just a quick recap for the people who might not have heard the first episode, and kind of a little synopsis of what your book is, and just a short kind of intro of how you got into it. So take her away,
So,
brother.
all right, thank you, sir. So I was listening to, oh my God, what's his name?
Robert,
No, yeah, I was listening to Robert, but I can't remember the podcast he was on.
William Ramsey.
So actually, I'd heard him on there several times before, but
Yeah.
never had this epiphany moment. And then I
Okay.
heard him on, oh my God, I'm forgetting Higher Side Chats. There it is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I
That's my
had this,
bucket list. I want to
yeah.
be on there so bad, but Greg Carlwood won't get. He hasn't given me the time of day yet. I love that show. All right, go ahead.
So I heard it on there, the free first hour, which I think we mentioned last time, and and I had this epiphany moment, and I kind of realized how it all went together. I could see the psyop from Shakespeare to climate change, and how I could connect all the tendrils that I would consider mainly British tendrils, but not necessarily. It's we might call it the Anglo Atlantic elite at this point. Um, so I saw those connections there, and I kind of became inspired and started writing, basically just dictating the beginning of the book in my phone. And research led me to writing the first chapter, and I sent it to Robert, and Robert was like, "Dude, this is great. You got to keep going." So he encouraged me to continue in my folly. But
Yeah.
the release date I'm expecting, maybe 2030, 2035, something
No
like
way, dude.
that.
No way, man. I can't wait that long.
So uh, it started out, primarily about Shakespeare and social control, manipulation, specifically drugs and initiation, and kind of leaning towards this idea of social control through Shakespeare, and
Yeah.
how I guess ultimately the idea would be that climate change is the same thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I think it's nice to clear that up too, so that people don't think that you're it's a um it's a great title, but I don't want people to think that you think that like Shakespeare or Bacon like created climate change or the climate change hoax or something like that. Like it's a from point A to all the way present day point B, and kind of the nonsense that's happened in relation to those guys and their ilk all the
yeah,
way
yeah,
up to present day. Yeah.
I think that the people that foisted climate change upon us are the intellectual offspring of Shakespeare and that operation.
That's a really good way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah. So the book continued on, into the next few chapters, and I started getting into the Templars and into ancient magic, because I found that the Templar symbolism was closely associated with ancient magic symbolism. And then that got me into alchemy. And
That's a big, that's a tough read there,
yeah,
dude.
that was my
That's
chapter 4, which led into a lot of this kind of dying and rising god green man thing that we mentioned last time,
mhm.
Cernunnos, and the worship of the Queen of Heaven. And so that's kind of where I went to from there. I'm trying to do this weave thing in the next couple chapters where I'm weaving history and magical practice with uh, psychological manipulation and social manipulation. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of the overall arching idea would be uh, social alchemy, I think,
Yeah.
and that being that coming out of their magical practices. So I'm trying to explain how they were magical and they thought magically, but they were also kind of like these devious social controllers, and how it
Yeah.
all kind of
And
fits together.
when you look at, Rosicrucianism and this like line of succession of alchemists and whatnot, I think maybe the base metal um, alchemy kind of idea in maybe in ancient times they were somebody was able to do it, and that because it does seem like all the accounts of alchemists all the way down the line they really kind of lost. I feel like those more magical alchemical practices, and it just kind of morphed into like what you're saying, like a social control, like a control matrix in a way. They kind of went from this base metal to gold to almost this philosophical alchemy where the individual becomes the base metal, and his progression and gnosis turns you turn yourself into gold or to your own god. And then I see a very clear line into the different secret societies that then influenced everything early on, their influence into the early stages especially of this country and whatnot, um, influencing and kind of controlling and steering us the way they wanted in this sort of kind of slow drip alchemical process, kind of the same process. Anyway, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, I say in the book that metallurgical alchemy is really a poor explanation for all the alchemy symbolism that I was finding in Shakespeare writings and other ancient writings. You find it in the Rubaiyat, which is like 1100s, Muslim
Hmm.
writing. You find it. Where else have I found it? Obviously, Shakespeare. I found it in a book by Jacobus de Voragine, which is called The Golden Legend,
Okay.
and I found it in the Arthurian legends. Like
Yeah.
it's everywhere. And I think it was kind of their sub rosa religion. And they used it to create a framework um, to change society into their image, I think, or into whatever they wanted to change it into in this sense, right? You
Hmm.
combine two things and you get a new thing out of it.
Right.
So yeah, that I don't know how much I want to get into the details of what I'm writing right now because I think what I sent you might be heavily altered. But
Okay.
I think there's some interesting points.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
and I know you like to keep things connected to Virginia.
Hey man, you can go all over the place. You're from Virginia. Don't you live in Virginia now, right?
I do.
That's connection enough for me to. You go wherever you want with it, man. We like your research, so.
Thank you. Thank you. So you pointed out in one of your episodes, I don't remember which one, that the Micmac tribe, or as they call themselves, the Mi'kmaq,
Yep,
are they're interesting in your research, right? Because they're
for
the
sure.
tribe that controls the Oak Island area and because
Right.
of their symbolism that they have in their ancient writing. And so I was on to in chapter 5, I think it was, I was on to this idea of garters as magic and
Right.
wrapping
Yeah.
wrapping things around yourself kind of in a magical practice.
Right. Yeah, I was reading that part of what you sent me. Um, yeah, very interesting. Then you got the Knights of the Garter. Go ahead. Yeah.
So as it relates to the Micmac or the Mi'kmaq, I figured we could go on a little journey. So I opened chapter 5 with a quote from a version of the Key of Solomon. It's called The Veritable Clavicles of Solomon. As far as this, all of, there's a ton of Key of Solomon texts out there with various names.
Yeah.
And this one's probably from the 1700s, they think. Technically, it's called Lansdowne MS 1203, and it's way different than the others. It's just got a lot of different stuff that the others don't have. People compare them and say, oh, where'd this come from? These all match. That doesn't match. Whatever.
Yeah.
This one's kind of an oddball. But the most popular version of the Key of Solomon by a guy named Mathers
Mm.
uh, used this section. He took this out. This
Is
quote that
it
I'm about to read.
McGregor Mathers?
I could look it up. I don't know.
I
Last
believe
name's
so.
Mathers.
I, I want to say, was it McGregor Matt? He was a magician in the McGregor. Pretty sure that's who it was. But
Yep. S.
yeah.
Little McGregor Mathers or Lido
Yeah. And when was he around? Because I want to say
in the
did
1800s, 1889. He wrote it. It
yeah,
looks like.
he's the guy who had beef with Crowley.
Okay, I don't know. I
Yeah,
didn't.
him and Crowley. I could be getting this wrong, but I believe he was the not the OTO, but the Golden Dawn. Yeah, I
Yep.
believe he was the head of the Golden Dawn,
Yep. That sounds right.
and then there was beef with him and Crowley, and that's why
Yeah.
Crowley
Yeah.
left the Golden Dawn, and then comes the OTO, and then they had this like kind of beef back and forth. I want to say they might have been the two guys. I can't remember. It's William Ramsey research and
Yeah.
whatnot
Yeah.
that I can't remember it word for word, but yeah, yeah. Anytime Crowley pops up in connection with a name, you're like, oh, all right,
Yeah.
it's
It's
real
not
now.
good.
So yeah. Go ahead and let me know if you want me to pull up any of these, share any of these. I've got the photos kind of queued up, so.
Yeah. So you can bring up the first one now, and I'll read this quote.
All right, let me go to my share.
So the quote is from this Lansdowne MS-13 version that McGregor Mathers took and put into his version of the Key of Solomon. Kind of nonsensically, like when people went back and they compared all the versions, they were like, what was Mathers up to here? But
Right.
he took this one and covered up some pretty dark stuff about using magical apples as love spells and uh, hate spells towards your enemies and things like that. And this was one of the ones that he used to cover up those other spells that he was uncomfortable with, or didn't want to expose, maybe.
Okay.
Uh, so the quote is, take enough of the skin of a stag to make two hollow tubular garters. But before stitching them up, thou shalt write on the inside of the skin, which was next to the flesh, the words and characters shown. And then it says du rosa, which means two roses in Latin. And then there's this kind of magical symbol next to it that you're supposed to write on the inside of the garter. Uh, and then it goes on, it says, having filled the garters with green mugwort, when thou shalt wish to use them, thou shalt get up before sunrise and wash them in a brook of running water and place them one on each leg above the knee. So, what they actually do, I left this part out, but in the spell, the point of it is to make you travel quickly across the land. So, like after you put these on, you point in a direction with a magic wand and you can basically go wherever you want on the earth. Which in the
Wow.
context, I didn't plan on getting into it. I was going to stick to the Micmac, but in the context of the Order of the Garter, the most chivalric order of the British Commonwealth, in a long-term sense, that's kind of what wearing the garter allowed them to do. So
Empire.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe it's appropriate, maybe it's a bit of a stretch. But what I wanted to get to is two things: this idea of wrapping yourself in the hide of animals as a magical practice,
Hmm.
and then beyond that, these weird symbols. And so we can go to the next slide. And this is kind of a formalized version of Micmac writing. And I think
Okay.
this is I think what it actually is written out here is a German song, like a Christian song from 1866.
Oh wow.
But what you can see here is specifically, obviously, the weird lines, these geometric shapes.
Yeah.
Um, but there's
N-
circles with crosses in them that have Templar crosses
Yeah.
or similar, something like Templar crosses on top. And then there's these lines that have circles at the end of them.
Right.
And so we can go down to the next slide. Actually, the next few you could probably just sort of scan through slowly. Um, this last one here, I think it's the last one. You see that box with the X in it and the Templar cross on top on the right top corner?
Oh, right here.
Yep, yep. That is a geomantic symbol. And really, as I was studying more, all of these are geomantic symbols. So if you go down, which is a type of divination, magical
Right.
divination, is where we get dice from. I think lots were probably the original form.
Okay.
Um, so if you go down to the next, this is images from uh, they're from a few different. I mean, you can find them in all of the ancient grimoires. This one, I think, is specifically from. It's a comparison of Mathers with a different French version of Clavicula Solomonis, and you can see in there. In fact, you'll see exactly squares with crosses in them. You'll see
Yeah.
you'll see a lot of the same symbols, lines with circles on the end of them.
Yeah.
Some of them, it's a little difficult to go through to compare each one because it's a lot of symbols, but
Yeah, but
we
I
can,
mean, you can see the it's not even the general motif. I mean, some of these are almost exact.
yeah, almost exact. And so that really keyed me in thinking, okay,
So
what
we're
were they
talking
into?
about a hunter-gatherer Nova Scotian native First Peoples tribe sharing symbols in their own language, um, with and that tribe is the things that they find of that tribe, like on Oak Island, it's dated much earlier than when these keys of Solomon kind of uh popped up.
Yeah, they put themselves back to the end of the last ice age, but it's,
Right.
I don't want to offend the Mi'kmaq, but it's a little sketchy. Some of
Right.
their data that puts them back that far. But I think they definitely go back very far. They have, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I think they have stories of meeting Europeans around 1000 AD.
Yeah.
I read this whole long chart. I don't know if I have it here, but anyway, they probably do have a pretty long history. So the question came to mind when I saw this was like, did they get it from the Templars? You know, because I
Right.
sort of had this idea that maybe some of these things had been uh, collated by the Templars, put together, packaged,
Hmm.
repurposed. Uh,
Well, that's one of my strong, suspicions. When you look at when these magical grimoires, and in particular, the Solomonic magic, it doesn't, everybody always they make they make this claim that they try to poo-poo it by saying, none of this stuff popped up until the Middle Ages. None of this started popping up until like late 1300s, or in Europe. Like it didn't, these medieval guys started um, writing this down. Well, if you look at it and you look at the fact that the Templars were based right on top of Solomon's temple, they spent time excavating, and then we know that they were highly secretive, and they were they were the biggest power in the world for, a for a couple hundred years, and then they're outlawed in the 1300s. Well, if it was solely in their possession, and they were, secretive about what they had found and what they were, putting together and, like you said, collating. Well, it would make sense that they didn't pop up anywhere else until the 1300s, the 1400s.
Yeah.
And it really, if you draw that timeline between when they were there and the first Crusades, and when all of this stuff that would had been hidden for centuries in the Holy Land, um, and then the first kind of Anglos get over there, um, and start finding all this wealth of old, knowledge and technology and whatnot. And it really does follow a pretty clear, timeline. Um, right up to, the 1300s, 1400s, when they start finding, Solomonic grimoires and stuff like that, being, written down in books and whatnot. So,
I think that's exactly why it shows up at that time, because of the Templar power in France and kind
yeah,
of a dissolution of that information across, the power structure in France, or even other countries, right? Obviously, they were instantly recreated in Portugal and went ahead and
right.
conquered, the whole world, uh, at least the coastlines. Um,
Yeah.
so
The other thing I see in a lot of these symbols and whatnot is, rudimentary pieces and parts of masonry, which I think I've come even, it's old hat now, but the more I research, the more I really feel like a lot of this stuff was distilled down into Freemasonry, and you can see, especially considering Scottish Rite Freemasonry, which I think shares a history with, or a common ancestor in the Templars. Um, and I've been recently digging into this idea that the 36 plays of Shakespeare, um, are really either what, you know um, Pike and the progenitors of Scottish Rite Freemasonry use as their 33 degrees, because there's 36 plays in the first folio of Shakespeare, but really when you look at it, there's a handful of plays that are in parts one and two, or parts one, two, and three. If you put those parts all together, you actually only end up with 33 plays.
Oh
And
yeah. I heard your podcast on it, and I immediately started looking into it myself and
and
realized that I needed to focus on things that were more immediate and that I'd get back to it later.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the crazy thing is that every single degree has very specific symbols and geometric shapes and patterns and things like that. It's every single degree has several of these, because you've got the jewel that goes with that degree, you've got the sash that goes with that degree, you have the artwork that's on the apron of that degree, you've got, just the, within the literature, you've got geometry, within the literary symbolism of that degree. And and I've just been poring over each degree, and I'm looking at these shapes and things, and they're all, many of them, make an appearance in the individual degrees. It's
That is
pretty
amazing.
wild. Yeah.
So yeah, my question was, looking at this, was, did it come from the Templars, or is it a common shared knowledge, right? That they both got from an independent source.
Right.
And looking into the Mi'kmaq, it's definitely an independent source. Like, they have it on rocks that they claim are from, like, 4000 BC, 5000
Mhm.
BC, and they have these exact same geomantic symbols, even pentacles, exact circles with these symbols on the inside of them. So, have you ever heard of L.A. Marzulli?
Oh yeah.
He has this idea, and I don't know if it's his idea, but it's where I heard it. Uh, that when Joshua went into Canaan, he thinks that the some of the giant tribes fled, basically what we might consider the Phoenicians, right? And that they spread out, or maybe a precursor to the Phoenicians. Maybe I'm misspeaking there, but
Oh, I'm a big fan of the Phoenicians.
they spread out uh, into the Americas is at least his idea, right? And so these would have been like kind of half giant, not totally human type figures, according to the biblical narrative, that were fleeing Joshua and going into the New World. And I think that some of the goose clap, or not the goose clap, the Micmac legends suggest that. And so really after studying it, I came to the conclusion that this is a common knowledge that they have developed, and that's why they represent the same things, and that they didn't actually
Wow.
get it from the Templars. So that's what made me think about L.A. Marzulli, right? Is because if this was an ancient knowledge that Solomon got by interacting with the people in the land of Canaan, then the people that fled Canaan to the Americas, assuming that's the case, would have brought with them this exact same knowledge of geomantic symbolism.
And that gets into, my favorite conspiracy and the whole the Gary Wayne sort of Genesis 6 Nephilim giant, conspiracy. That is the basis, and in every single mythos of every religion, from ancient aliens to the Abrahamic religions to the Vedas to, it early on there was a flood, and early on there were giant titan god, half half human women, people roaming the earth. And a lot of them, you know uh claim they're responsible for the megalithic structures and these things that we can't reproduce today, but were, supposedly produced by people with copper tools. um
So no
yeah.
surprise, the Mi'kmaq have these same giant stories as their creation legends.
Right.
And their first guy, their first, I don't know what he was exactly. I don't know what you'd call him. Their founder, his name was Glooskap, and he was a giant and a magician. And uh, they have lots of stories of magicians in their legend that are super numerical and spiritual. It's like these ideas of crossing into a foggy ocean, right? And then they get lost, and then they find these giants who take them in, and then there's these series of threes, like they wait 3 days, and then he says they're going to get in a war in 3 days, and it's just
Right.
this series of stacked numbers in this kind of mystical story about how they met these giants. And during that story, uh, the Mi'kmaq that met these giants in these canoes out in the fog uh, is told, "Hey, in 3 days," by the giant chief. He says, "In 3 days, we're going to have a war with another giant, and it's called a Chenu, and it's a cannibal ice giant." And so they get ready to go fight this, and some of the braves they go out and get ready to fight, and the chief gives instruction to the Mi'kmaq, and he says, "Stop up your ears, bind your head, and roll yourself in many folds of dressed skin, lest you should hear the deadly war scream of the Chenu." And
Mm.
because I had been studying, wrapping yourselves in animal skins as magic, I started to think, okay, well, maybe there's something there. I mean, it's not a garter, but they're wrapping themselves in animal skins. And
Hmm.
it says after three progressively oh, I wrote this. After three progressively weakening screams of the Chano, it's defeated. And then we read, it says, then the chief, who knew by his magic all that was happening, came in and told them to unwrap themselves. And they came out, for the Chanu had been slain. And then the next day they do the same thing. Basically, he says in 3 days we'll have to go fight a Kukwace, which is a giant, hairy child stealing ogre. And then so they make ready to do battle, and then the chief says, on the morning of the third day, the four warriors again went out to meet the cannibal giant Kukwace, and the little people stopped up their ears and wrapped themselves in dressed skins as they had done before. Three progressively weakening screams later, the Kukwace is defeated. After the battle, the poor Micmac couple expressed their desire to go home and see their children. Uh, hold on. They get sent home and they make it home magically, like all of a sudden they're back. So it's like, it's definitely this whole spiritual tale. And then they're super.
Very similar to that, pointing that wand. and making it back. I remember reading that part where they just kind of glided over the water very smoothly and then making great time back home.
Yeah, yeah, led by a dog. It seems kind of like star related, but it's also very spiritual. Like they got home in an instant through the fog.
Yeah.
And then they're super successful when they're back in their homeland. But another thing that indicates that it's magical is the man, the Mi'kmaq man, uh, ends up meeting the giants again, but not going through the fog. This time he meets them in dreams, but he's actually, meeting them and interacting with them. And the giant tells him in the dream, the chief, he says, "My sons are all gone, and I shall soon follow. But before I go, I wish to leave their magical power with you. Take their clothes and wear them. And in wearing them, you will receive all the wonderful powers my son possessed." And so he takes their clothes and he can use them, for all these magical things. He grows large, gets super smart, um, maybe lives for a long time. In fact, I think it says he becomes, by doing that, something called a megu. This is terrible. Megumuesu. And a megamuesu is, if you want to show in some of the slides,
Yeah.
I think I have. Now, this is questionable provenance, just something I found on the internet by looking up megamuesu. You're looking for the little doll.
Yes.
Um, oh, we can go back to that in a second. So this is just a doll presented by some Algonquin lady. Algonquin, I think, is, from what I understand, the general tribe that tribal
Hmm.
name for all of the people in that region, or at least maybe
Yeah, I think it
inactive
was
one from the past.
yeah, I think it was a confederation, kind of like the Iroquois, or it might just be an overarching term for
It could
yeah.
have been a name that the French gave them, actually. But
Okay.
so this is a lady from those northern, Canada tribes who's made this doll, this Megamoesu doll, and it has the Templar pentacle right on its neck.
Yeah.
And, and I don't think she's thinking about that. She's just thinking about what these things mean in her magical practice. And so the scoop on the Megamoesu is that men can become them, basically being gifted the knowledge by the spirits. And so when they become a Megamoesu, they become a tiny like magician. It just so turns out there's a few different versions of what these things are exactly. But the most common one that I found was they're described as demigod trickster forest spirits with
Huh.
fawn or satyr like body parts, and they have a magical flute.
And that goes back to the first episode that we did.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
Pan, Cernunnos, the Green Man,
Yeah.
generally. So
It's
this guy,
incredible. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
this
I
guy
was
in the story who got the clothes from the giants ends up becoming one of these little magical people, apparently with animal legs and a magical flute. I was looking more into their practices, their magical practices, and I found an article from 1896 in the Journal of American Folklore, and it's called Micmac Magic and Medicine. And in there, he basically describes European magical herbal practices exactly. So it's this exactly what you would read in the European manuscripts. It's like go out on the 14th of September, although they don't say that in the Micmac stuff because obviously they didn't have September. But go out when the sun is at this point and face this direction and collect this herb. And if you're going to do it at this time of day, collect it on this side of a shadow of a tree or whatever, like these very specific, detailed,
right.
magical descriptions. And that's how these guys collect their herbs for their initiations. The writer of this story from the Journal of American Folklore really keys into some interesting things. How they are using their drugs as initiations, and at the end, he even suggests that maybe it's associated with mind control.
Say that again.
He suggests that their potions that they collect and give to their initiates might be associated with mind control. Although he says I haven't seen any obvious examples of it, but he does suggest it. I'm trying to find it here, but I don't see it. Maybe I didn't copy it down. So yeah, they were definitely involved in also the very same type of practices. Not only do they have the same symbols, but they think about the world in the same way, right? Like the way they would
Right.
collect these special herbs. Um, Let me look through here real quick. I think I missed a piece of my story.
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me.
So to
Wait.
go back to my book and kind of tie in this idea of magical clothing, I bring up Gawain and the Green Knight towards the end of the fifth chapter,
Yeah.
and it's a long story, but basically he meets this Green Knight that comes in and he challenges him basically and says, "Hey, you can cut my head off, and if it doesn't work, then in a year from now you have to let me try and cut your head off." And so Gawain is like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem. I'll go cut your head off." And so he walks up, grabs the axe, cuts his head off, and then the giant Green Knight goes and picks up his head and hops back on his horse, and he's holding his head in his hand, and he's like, "All right, you got to meet me in a year." So he rides off, and Gawain is like, "Oh man, I can't believe that guy didn't die when I chopped off his head. Now I got to go get my head chopped off in a year." And so he's getting ready to leave and go meet the Green Knight, and uh, and they give a description of his shield. And I'm not seeing it here. Hold on. Oh my God, did I cut it? Hold on. Maybe I'm going out of order. Sorry, this is not a very good podcast.
It's
All right,
great. This is all good stuff, man.
so before we go into the description of the pentacle, later on in the story, you find out after he's met the Green Knight that he's actually talking to the Green Knight about to get his head cut off, and the Green Knight tells him the point of everything that's happened. He says, "Well, actually, this was all a trick and a test designed by Morgan the goddess, my boss, who I live with back at the castle." And he gives he had been given Gawain had been given by the wife of the Green Knight earlier in the story that I skipped over. He had been given a green sash, or a belt is what she called it initially. He ends up wearing it as a green sash. And after he fights with the I'm not telling the story very well. After he fights with the Green Knight and doesn't get his head cut off magically because he was wearing this green belt,
Right.
um, he gives it back to the Green Knight. He's like, "I don't want this stupid green belt." And the Green Knight gives it back to him, and he says, "Oh no, I give you back the girdle with the golden border. Uh, it's like my green gown, so take it, Gawain, to recall the contest between you and me at the Green Chapel." Um, he takes this green belt and he wears it, as I said before, as a sash around him, and it becomes this symbol of uh, nobility, I guess, when he gets back to the round table. So they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll all wear this sash with you." And
Right.
what Gawain says about it, he says, "I wear this token for succumbing to deceit. It's a token of untruth, and I'm wrapped in it and must wear it everywhere while my life lasts." And that's and this okay. So this what I'm trying to connect here is the idea of clothing as a pentacle, right? They're essentially the
Right.
same thing. So this sash that he's wearing is exactly like his pentacle, or a pentacle,
Yeah.
or the symbolism of the Micmac, as it were. And
It's
so
also
yeah, he gets
interesting that
back.
the it's also
Go ahead.
interesting that the whole crew decides to wear this thing that almost has, a negative connotation.
It makes no sense actually. You read through the
Yeah.
story and you're like, what?
Unless it's allegory for what did he say he had to wear it for again? Or what it represents? I had a
For
thought here.
succumbing to deceit, it is a token of untruth, and I am trapped in it and must wear it everywhere while my life lasts.
It's almost allegory for, secrecy, deceit, and putting that all on this order of knights, the
Yeah, yeah,
knights of the
yeah.
round table. I don't know. That's kind of what I thought of when you were when I read it earlier and then when you were just going through it.
So immediately after they all accept this green baldric, as they call it, the sash,
Hmm.
uh, the story ends. That's basically the end, and it ends with the words "Honi soit qui mal y pense," which is shame on him who thinks evil of it. And that is the symbol
Oh,
on the Order of the Garter wrapped around the outside, on their arms,
oh shit.
which is a pentacle that's basically saying, "How dare you think evil of it?"
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is kind of the way that I, all secret societies throw their like dark shit in your face and then ridicule people for being like, this shit's dark, dude. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
mean, you've got Masons drinking wine out of skulls, and you've got, Skull and Bones whacking off in coffins, and you've got, all these negative things and reports and connotations and these gruesome blood oaths from all these different, orders and secret societies. And then, but if you mention that, their line is, "Oh, come on, we're fraternity, we're brotherhood, we do community service and whatnot." And it's like, yeah, but hold on. We're not going to just ignore 33 degrees of blood curdling, blood oaths and like skull drinking and crap like that just because you're like, yeah, but we have little tiny cars and we're in parades and shit.
yeah, yeah. Look at those kids. Look at those braces we
Right.
put on their legs.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's so funny. They do all this stuff. They hold all this secrecy. They wield all this control and all this power, and then they're like, You're bad if you think this is evil." You know what I mean? Like right
Yeah,
on our coat of arms, our logo here is just, never mind the rest
not
of it.
not suspicious at all.
Yeah, yeah. Me thinkest thou doth protest so much. You know what I mean? It's
To use
like,
their own words against them.
yeah.
Okay,
Wow, that's
so
really wild.
yeah, so I'm going to skip down to the pentacle real quick since I think I put that out of order here.
Okay.
Before Gawain went and found the Green Knight and went through everything I just described, he is given a shield, and on the shield there's what they're calling a pentangle here, which is essentially a pentacle.
Yeah.
And so then I'll read a little bit of the story here. It says, "Then they show him the shield, its jewels shimmering, and its pentangle picked out in pure gold. He grips the girdle of the shield." There's that word girdle again, with like a garter,
Yeah.
flicks it quickly around his neck. Now, though it delay me, I propose to say why the pentacle bedecks the noble knight. It is a design that Solomon devised, a sign and a token of truth. Kind of the opposite there of what we just read.
Yeah.
And then he says, quite rightly, too, for it's a figure that comprises 5 points and its lines overlap and link with each other, and it has no end anywhere. And men in England call it accordingly the knot without end. And again, he says, always without end, as I have found, no matter where a man might begin the design or strive to close it. Therefore, the knot on this new shield was fashioned royally, the pure pentangle which people were taught of old. And
Am I
so,
getting close to what you're talking about here? Is
uh,
it
go up.
go up?
Yeah, I guess I'm on the Green Knight. I kind of just threw that image in there of the round table
Yeah.
just as a
There
holder.
we go.
It kind of looks like
Yeah.
a pentangle with tiny people in the middle. Might
Yeah.
relate to the Mega Muesu, but probably not. They're probably like children's servants or something.
Yeah.
Um, so that pentangle connects uh, Solomon's pentacles along with the endless knot. And a little description that I didn't include, when Gawain is given the green sash by the Green Knight's wife, she says, if you look on its knots carefully, you'll see that it is more valuable than people might initially think that it is. And she goes on this whole big description basically of how it will protect him from otherworldly powers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a direct connection between this wrapping of clothing around yourself and it being a representation of these pentacles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Does it
um,
look a little bit like these guys around this round table have lines of blow cut up? I mean, I know they don't, but I don't know. My flu-ridden brain, I just look at them and it looks like they're just all sitting around like a table in Miami with these lines of blow on these gold plates. Sorry, I digress.
I noticed that there were 11 of them seating, and then Merlin the
Uh,
12th is standing at the entrance to the circle. But
Two,
I don't know how
three,
relevant that is.
7, 8, 9. Well, 11 is the number of magic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Wow. Yeah, all of these medieval, engravings and things like that are just replete with symbolism from the direction the people are turned
yep, yep.
to the amount of these tiny people to this guy sticking his head through a doorway. Like it all,
Yeah, that I would notice or point out that the two guys at the top middle are facing away from whatever that writing is. That seems suspicious,
yeah. And
like
this
symbolic.
writing, it almost like comes off as it could be like, I don't know, maybe Hebrew or
That's
something,
what I was thinking, but it's kind of too hard to tell.
but it's also fairly reminiscent of this stuff too,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
which I think again it all has a common ancestor, um, possibly.
So
Huh.
this image here, that circle
This
there
one?
with, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
inside. Not really relevant, but I noticed it. It's the inside of that goose cap book that I was reading from like
Right.
1913. That's the printer's mark. If you look in the top right hand,
Okay.
it itself is a pentacle, like formed on the ideas of a pentacle. But
Yeah.
if you look at the top right and top left hand corner, kind of hard to see, but there's Templar crosses right there in each corner.
Yeah. And you've got the blazing star.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's a um sign of secret orders
Mhm.
always. Huh.
So then going down, I think we'll see some of the examples of the Micmac pentacles that are much older than their contact with Europeans, as far as I could tell.
Uh-huh.
That one there, man, I couldn't find it again, but I've seen very similar pentacles in European grimoires that look like that. They don't generally have the bumps along the outside, but like crosses sticking into the middle.
Yeah, they look like some of the ones that are up here, don't they? I mean, it's not that one's not. They're all so damn similar.
Yeah, you can definitely see the concepts there
Yeah.
playing, translating over. Um, so yeah, they have those rock carvings. They say it represents their seven tribes. That's why there's seven of those crosses in there. That red version of it was actually suggested as their new flag. And
Really?
as far as I could tell, it was never made their new flag, but it is a symbol of their council. So they have this council that's been around since the like the 1730s or something like that. I'm trying to find the information,
Okay.
but I guess I don't have it here. So yeah, if you go down a little bit, you'll see what their actual flag is to this day. And that's the tribe of their grand, or that's the flag of their grand council, which itself is alchemical and
Yeah. Good God. I mean, for this to be the flag of the Grand Council of a First Nations, uh, peoples, and it to be so reminiscent of Abrahamic religions, and to claim that they didn't have any really early, I mean, I know this is a newer version of
yeah, this
that
flag came
flag.
around, I think, in the 1700s, and they were Roman Catholic by that point.
Of course they were.
Yeah.
Of course they were.
So then, then the next picture down is of it's the banner at the top of the Grand Council's website. So you can see they're promoting that symbol on the right of that carving that I said was potentially going to be their flag at one point.
Uh-huh.
And then in the middle, they're holding it's a wampum belt, but I couldn't help but notice the the correlations to a sash
Yeah.
and the fact that they have two pentacles on either side of them holding this sash.
Yeah.
From my perspective, suggests magical practice.
Yeah. Just covered in crosses too.
Yeah, yeah. So then their next symbol, this is the Micmac star. This is older than they know, as far as I could tell. They don't have a beginning for it. They find it carved on rocks.
Yeah.
And I've found differences in the angles of the colors, right? Some people will say, oh, yellow is north. In this version, it shows white as north. So
Okay.
that's not exactly clear to me, but what it is an eight-pointed star. It's
Right.
also very similar to the Hospitaller cross.
Right.
And for them, read some of my, an eight-pointed star is a representation of Inanna and Venus, which is also very important to, Western esoteric worship. Um, yeah, it has the four alchemical colors in it: white, black, red, and the thing you produce in the end, the gold. Um,
Right. Yeah, that's always interesting. White, black, red, yellow.
so sorry, I should have reread this earlier today. I haven't read it in a few days. um,
You're good, dude. Keep it up, man. It's kick-ass stuff.
so this does represent um, some of the magical mixtures that they make for their initiation. It's closely associated with it. Um, so basically, it says here that one plant belonged to each of the seven tribes into which, like the Micmacs and the Creeks, uh, believe that
That,
they were originally divided. The two peoples, however, use not a single plant in common. Oh, okay. So basically, the idea is that this star represents the
yes.
four cardinal directions, and the four cardinal directions are spirits that gave the Micmac their knowledge of plant use, and that these plants that they collect for these initiation ceremonies are connected with the spirits of this star, basically.
Okay.
So, uh, going down, oh, just quickly before we move on, I thought it was interesting that they have a chief magician who's called Buin or Muin, depending on how you pronounce it. And I thought that sounded like Merlin because he's like their chief
Oh
magician,
yeah.
Muin, but probably not. Uh,
It's still, damn, it's still interesting, dude.
okay,
I mean,
so if what?
oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
So if you go down in the images, you'll see, remembering this Micmac star of ancient alchemical origin, there's their version of it carved in a rock with all the Templar crosses around it.
Right.
And then if you go down again, this is the next one is a picture from 1436 from the Burgundian, uh, you might call it an empire kingdom.
Right.
And this was commissioned by Philip III, the creator of the Golden Fleece. It's made
Right.
by a guy named
So,
Jan van Eck, who was the head of art for the Burgundian court.
and Philip the Third, if I'm not mistaken, he was the guy who just stopped paying attention to like diplomacy and like he got real obsessed with like I might be getting him wrong, but I think it wasn't he the guy that built like the crazy castles and like was really focused on like wouldn't get married and like was really focused on all this kind of like man, I'm probably getting it wrong. Never
It's
mind.
not sounding familiar.
No.
He was married three times,
Okay.
had three legitimate children, but had somewhere between 26 and 72 illegitimate children.
There we go. Yeah, that doesn't
Yeah,
sound like
and
the guy who never got married. Never mind.
he was a true bastard, always switching sides and
Yeah.
being a Machiavellian asshole. Okay, so if you notice in this picture, you have the Queen of Heaven sitting there in a red gown that's green on the inside. I would suggest that that's related to this idea of the green
The
sash or the
green
green covering
green
that you
garter.
have. Yeah. And then the baby Jesus is sitting on a white cloth. So you have this red and white symbolism of alchemy. And if you look down below her, there's a carpet. And if you go to the next picture, I think I have a close up of the carpet that they're sitting on.
Yeah, which is that exact.
Yeah, which is the exact Micmac star symbol. In the
Including in the Micmac, you can't really tell what the circle in the middle is, but it could easily be that flower motif as well.
Yeah, so this one is actually the combination. It looks green in this image, and it might actually be green, the background flower, but it's still very close to this idea of mixing a red and a white rose together in one image, which became known as the Tudor rose.
Right.
And I think this is a concept that it pre-existed the Tudors, and he basically used it as social alchemy again, because it was a known symbol of unification and of alchemy. So that's right there in the middle. And also, if you look at this image, all of it is an endless knot. So there's tiny little endless knots
Yeah.
in the middle, and then the actual stars themselves are endless knots.
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah, I
Huh.
think that there is a common ancient magical sub rosa practice going on in Europe that they definitely got from an older time, and I think the Micmacs suggest uh, that there's a common origin somewhere further in the past.
Yeah. Huh.
That's really all I got on that.
Man, it's good stuff though, dude. God dang, it's good stuff. Damn, man. Well, you got anything else? We can keep going.
I guess totally changing subjects here. I sent you that
Yeah.
image last night of the Utah campus. That seems right up your alley. I don't know if you want
Oh,
to.
bro. So I have not wanted to well, I don't want to get I I have not wanted to get canceled.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I have not really, I did some stuff on the NYC uh office building shooting, which is batshit crazy and
yep,
God scream psyop. And there was some pretty weird connections between that and one of the other shootings here recently. Um, and immediately when I saw the Charlie Kirk thing and the subsequent arrest, everything seemed so convenient.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Not that he didn't die and that somebody
Oh,
didn't take him out. He
definitely dead.
absolutely got taken out by somebody. I think what's really interesting is that, I never was super aware of Charlie Kirk, and then he started popping up in like one of my social media feeds. And there's things I don't agree with him on, but there's some pretty common sense stuff. And I
Yeah,
did always really appreciate his ability to, he's painted as this bigot and, hate speech guy. But if you actually listen to him, he's pretty mild and mellow for what, considering the public speaking, debating fundamentalist, ultra conservative, you know, right wing guys. You know what I mean? Like he's the entire his entire kind of mission there was to talk into understanding what's going on. He's so like I've heard people call him like he was the mildest of all of this side, and
yeah,
you
very
kind
milk
of took
toast
him.
as far as the right is concerned.
Yeah, and so it seems like a really strange target, unless it is from um somebody who's only steeped in social media and TikTok videos and things like that. So that's one thing that does point to, this young guy in college. But the rest of it, To be honest with you, before you came on, I was watching Candace Owens just came out with a video that's titled like "Who Put the Hit Out on Charlie Kirk," and I have not finished it yet. But she's just going through the text messages between the supposed shooter and his partner, the
Hmm.
roommate, and I just recently had William Ramsey on talking about, the Vince Foster suicide.
Yeah.
And we got into how incredibly convenient and tidy his his suicide note was because it was
Hmm.
very clearly a forgery. And what she was reading, and I think what she was implying, is that these messages sounded like a really tidy, just clean it all up. I'm the guy. I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you, like he's just having this long conversation back and forth with his roommate about having where he left the gun, and that explains. Okay, we found the gun in the thing. Um, and some of the wording that he's using is like he refers to his car as his vehicle. He refers to the gun as his rifle, only
Mhm.
his rifle,
Mhm.
um, and all these other kind of tactically sounding words. And what she was saying, she was like, I had my entire team go to their text messages and type in these words into their search and try to find a place where you used the word vehicle instead of car.
Mhm.
And she was like, nobody could find it in the last couple of years. And the only time we did find it, it was like some DMV thing in our text messages that refers to vehicle. And same with rifle. Like when most people would just say gun or like, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? But it does sound an awful lot like an operator. You know what I mean? Like these terms that he's using in the in these text messages, and you
What I
pull
heard
up,
was he said, "Oh, I had an opportunity and I took it."
yeah.
And then the other one says, "Well, how long uh have you been thinking about this?" And he said like a week, I think. Which is just to me
It's
total nonsense.
yeah. He thought about it for a week, scaled a building. Like
I
I
think
don't care
maybe
what any
I,
of the. This is the other thing is they keep trotting out these like marksman weapons experts and stuff like that, and they keep screaming like this is not a tough shot. This is not. This is with scopes and things like that. One, this kid jumped up on a roof, had to assemble the gun, um, use a scope, like it's a much harder shot under duress. You know what I mean? Like I know you're up there, you're calm, but you're a 22-year-old kid about to assassinate a public figure,
yeah, you
and you
wouldn't be
took
calm.
one shot, one shot, one kill to the jugular,
Yeah.
dude. I mean, if you were, if I mean, if one side or the other was looking to make a martyr, I mean, they did it, man. Um,
Absolutely.
But good gosh, be careful because Jimmy Kimmel just got taken off the air for suggesting that this kid was MAGA. They just, I don't know if you saw that recently. They pulled Jimmy Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel or whatever off the air.
Wow.
Yeah, if the FCC like threatened ABC and ABC was just like, yeah, we're done. And he didn't even say anything like he wasn't like the other people who are losing their jobs all over the country for laughing and celebrating. He just said he made a comment that was like, yeah, there was some time of mourning on that side, but like this kid was clearly like MAGA or something. So it wasn't even like I mean, it was in poor taste, I guess,
Yeah.
but I mean, it seemed a lot more of a jab at Trump and MAGA than it did at Charlie Kirk. It was weird.
It seems inappropriate to me to cancel people for their free speech when Charlie Kirk was killed for his free speech.
Thank you. That's the first thing that I said is like, oh, he, he when it first kind of immediately happened, I was like, my God, man, This happened. He clearly was killed by somebody from the left, and was my first thought. And my first thought was, you killed a guy using a gun. The thing that you're banging the drum about him supporting the he's a big Second Amendment guy, and then you go and use a gun to to do the thing that and then you turn around and I mean, I listened to Timcast the other day. I don't listen to that show much, but there were two guys on I guess it's Tim Pool, that's his name. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um there were two guys on there who were straight calling for for making people now I think you're a douchebag if you're celebrating anybody's death,
yeah,
but I mean he was calling for these guys on Timcast were calling for that to be considered a crime. And the week before, you could have easily found a soundbite where they were complaining about being censored or freedom. I mean, it's literally what Charlie Kirk's whole thing was.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like celebrating somebody dying. I think it's a douchebag move, but I don't think it is a yet another reason to erode our rights. You know what I mean? Like it's
I feel
scary.
like the ops that we undergo these days have multiple goals in mind when they do it. It seems to me that the primary one was just further division, right? Because
Yeah.
he's able to be made into such a lionized hero on one side, and
I actually think it's getting, I don't think it's as 3D as people make it out to be. I think it's getting sloppy. I think these ops are sloppier than we're even thinking. I mean, you look at, Trump campaigning on the Epstein list, and then he doesn't even
it's a
try to,
Democrat hoax.
yeah, and then he doesn't even try to obfuscate the fact that he's like 6 months ago was banging the drum about the Epstein list, and now he's just like, we're talking about that? Are we still talking about that? And
Wow.
then this guy gets killed, and like you immediately attack free speech. Like, yeah, these people who are celebrating, they're douchebags. And if their boss wants to be like, hey, I don't want you working for me because I don't want that kind of aura around my company, 100% that guy should have that right to do that. But like, to like threaten like legal consequences and stuff like that, it's insane. It's the exact opposite of what Charlie Kirk was doing and what a lot of these folks are doing.
Yeah, it's
It's
foolishness. But
it
I think
is
that's part of the op to divide and also to
yeah,
uh, increase the censorship, right? Like, how else would you have gotten the right to all agree to, hate speech laws and hate crimes against the right, and institute all this stuff that the left's been trying to institute.
yeah,
Trump's been pretty good at bringing the right around on stuff like that, like abortion doesn't seem
yeah.
to be an issue anymore.
Well, here's the other thing too. The big catchphrase for uh, not not just masonry, but secret societies and whatnot in general is that whole order ab chaos,
Mm-hmm.
order out of chaos. I
Yep.
think some of these are whoever's pulling the strings on some of these big events, false flags, national tragedies, and whatnot. It almost feels like they just go ahead and do it chaotically. Whether they're using some mind controlled person or a Manchurian candidate, or they're just doing it themselves, whatever it is. And then they go, just make this big thing happen. And then we can steer it however we need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, um, I think the big thing has to happen. And when you go back to things like 9/11 and whatnot, like, did they themselves, Donald Rumsfeld, have the towers attacked? Or was it as simple as knowing that it was a good possibility it was going to happen and then seizing the moment to use it to your advantage, order out of chaos? I
Yeah.
feel like that is kind of the modus operandi of whoever's pulling the strings on these psyops and whatnot is Let a bad thing that you know is going to happen, and then twist it to suit your means. And it doesn't matter. Whatever administration is in power at that particular moment, they use those events in that way. This
I feel
chaos
like
happens.
we're being that they're sloppy in the narrative kind of intentionally. So
You think so?
they want to drive a third of the culture to just not believe any of it, and
Yeah.
another third to just believe it, and then another third to be on the far opposite side, right? Like cheering the death of Kirk or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like this three-way division. You have these people that are like, I absolutely don't believe the main story. You have another group of people that are like, oh, I totally believe the main story, and then you have a group of people that are, far out on the left, believing something totally different, maybe their own version of a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, dude, and I think you're 100% right on that because I am a self-proclaimed conspiracy theorist, a fan of conspiracy, fan of researching conspiracy. And it's even gotten to the point lately that it's almost too much to even wrap your head around. And you're almost like, it's like how I got with voting. I finally got to a place where I was just like, never mind. I
Yeah,
can't wrap my head around how this could even be a meaningful, act. And I'm kind of like that. I hate to say it, but I'm kind of getting like that with conspiracy, where I think they're purposely muddying the waters of true, legitimate
mud flood.
conspiratorial research. Yeah, exactly. Flat Earth, mud
Yeah, flatter.
flood, you know.
Yeah,
And the crazy thing is, I know we're jumping all over the place, but the crazy thing is with the mud flood is they took a thing like Tartaria and a civilization and a people, the Tartars, who existed and you know, were super important and was a big civilization, and they pretty much got erased from history. And then when that first started coming up, this mud flood thing wasn't a thing at all. But like this, people are pulling the more people get into conspiracy and hidden history, the more these old maps are coming up.
yeah. They're like, look, it says Tartaria.
And this Tartar thing comes up, so people start researching it, and then almost immediately, all this weird mud flood crap like comes in just to kind of discount what you're some of the truth that's starting to come out about
Exactly.
the Tartars and these other civilization, man.
Yeah, and also to discredit the movement generally, right? Like, oh, those
Yeah,
people are crazy.
yeah. You keep when you have the overarching term of conspiracy, even though we all know conspiracies exist, any person with a brain inside their skull can do a very simple Google search, and find official, declassified conspiracies that happened and are proven and are 100% true. So they exist. But by, you know, demonizing that term and then just setting it on an entire community of people that, you know, contain some kooks and some tinfoil hat wearers, but it also contains double PhDs and engineers and like brilliant linguists and but everybody's under that one heading of you're all dum dums, you're all conspiracy theorists, this is all horse shit.
Yeah, crazy flat earther mud flood guys.
Yeah.
So I would say going back to the Kirk thing, Brisson, who you had on, I think episodes ago, was
Yeah.
making a good point towards the end about this kind of intentional awakening. And I've heard it called the second matrix, like where you wake up from the matrix, but you wake up into another matrix that was created for you, but you think you're out of the
Yeah.
matrix. And it gets a little deep and maybe black pilled if you don't have a strong faith. But
Yeah.
I really think that that's kind of behind this seeding of, oh, we can't trust any of the narratives, and it's driving this conspiracy culture awakening. And I think that's kind of to create a false enemy to destroy. I think the left was a false enemy to destroy. They're kind of uh, not all of them. I don't want to generalize everybody, but in the extreme, they're kind of clownish, right? And average
Yeah.
society would look at it and be like, well, that's totally ridiculous. So it seems clear to me that they were kind of
Yeah.
setting up this cultural patsy for the majority of everyone else to say, oh, yeah, we totally reject that. And then they can piggyback all these laws like we kind of see right now on the back of it.
Same thing they did with 9/11. Get everybody scared because of one thing and then shove a bunch of stuff through. And like you're saying, it's the same thing that the Clinton era did to the right by pointing out the clownishness of possibly Reagan era, um, and the same thing that happened with George W. Um, it yeah, it's very weird, man.
So
I
I
will
think
tell you. No, go
no,
ahead. Go ahead.
I think some of this second matrix idea and its connection to the conspiracy theory and like I don't know, you might call it a question culture. Like what? WTF culture. We're all on the internet like, oh yeah, I don't believe any of that. And obviously that's just a portion of us, but I think
Yeah,
it's a pretty large portion at this point. And I
I think
think
it's
it's
huge.
it's being led towards something. And I think Brisson was getting at that. And I think we should all be careful and in some ways disconnect.
Yeah. Well, I think that like our only God, I never wanted to be this conspiracy guy, but the off the grid, disconnected like folks, man, they got a point, dude. I mean because until you unplug, you can't help but I mean, I can't tell you how many conspiracy theories like and I collect them, I always say it. I collect conspiracies like comic books. I love them. I'd rather listen to a crappy conspiracy than like a good story.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just
It's fun to think about.
it's interesting. Like the mystery is what's really interesting, and just like picking it apart and thinking about it. I forgot where I was going with this.
I was talking
Shoot.
about the second matrix, kind of us being led and
Oh, yeah, but I was just gonna say I can't tell you how many times I've been all in on something. And
yeah.
then been like, what in the hell was I thinking? Of course, you go back to center. You're a Bacon, Shakespeare. There's something weird here, like hidden history. Like get yourself back to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's because we've been lied to for so long and psyoped for so freaking long that y- and it's purposeful. They keep you at a point where you don't know whether you're coming and going, and then they can do anything.
Order out
Uh,
of chaos, like you said.
Order ab KO, man. And I mean, God, you've got what's his name? The big UFO guy has been really heavy out there on social media talking about something's coming soon. I don't know if they're
You're
setting this
talking about
up for
the Avi Loeb, the Harvard
no,
scientist guy,
the other guy.
Stephen Greer.
Yeah, Stephen Greer. He's been all over. Something's coming. Couple of weeks, there's going to be huge news. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that guy's not
Really?
a psyop at all.
Good God. I mean, who has that? Like, meanwhile, like the production quality of the who's the guy that Rogan loves? The guy that worked out like for at Los Alamos,
Oh yeah,
the whistleblower guy. Like
yeah.
his documentary was it was good. It was really good and like legit, but it was kind of low budget in comparison to Greer's like 30 huge budget documentaries that he's been able to put out that like have been warning that something new was going to happen like for years. I don't know. Um
Seems to
God,
be like they're making it out to be this three-eye atlas thing. Have you seen some of that woo
no.
around that?
Oh, is that the
Interstellar object that's coming in on our
yeah.
elliptical plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that going to be like the big cigar shaped thing, like that was
My
reflecting and then just went away and
the only legitimate concerns that I've seen about it is that when I think it was a Muamua, if you remember that one,
right? Yeah, yeah. That's the one I'm
when
talking about. That was the big long thing that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
they
okay, yeah,
could
yeah.
tell because it had some, Yeah, they couldn't tell
even though they
where.
never actually saw it, I think, but whatever, math. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so back then, it passed by the sun and caused, well, I don't know if it caused it. This is some people's guesses, but there were huge solar flares, some of the biggest of that solar cycle. I think it was like a 9.6 or something, right as it was passing through. And so some of these people that I've been watching who've been talking about this 3i atlas say there's a chance that it'll cause huge solar flares. And they were showing some graphs associated with the previous time. And I think that if anything is a possibility out of all the nonsense that I've heard, that's probably a
Yeah.
possibility.
Well, and they blame that on aliens, and then
They're
this
definitely getting ready for something with aliens, man. I don't know, but they're definitely
something
priming the
big is
pump.
something big is coming, man. It's getting too weird, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way too weird. Where the hell is Elon Musk? Where
I
did
don't
he
know.
go?
I try not to follow him.
I know, but like he was on everybody's lips for like ever. And then he just was like, I'm out of this administration. F you, Donald. And it's like, I haven't
Yeah,
heard a
you're
thing about him in like months.
maybe he went too far with the you're on the Epstein list thing, so he's trying to keep his head low.
Somebody's on that thing. Have you seen since we're just waxing poetic on just general conspiracy, have you seen the dead man switch for
For
Virginia Giuffre, the
no, no, I have not.
Epstein victim? Yeah, there's some thing. I'm sure it's AI using her voice, but it's
Oh
somebody
yes,
put
I've heard
out.
the voice recording. Yeah, I think it's probably
Yeah,
fake.
yeah, but it's interesting. I'll
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I'll
Well,
watch it.
yeah, the whole thing
Um,
around her dying, very weird.
yeah, just it's the amount of suicide that happens around people who are finally out of the horrible situation that these evil people put them in, and then they kill themselves. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like right when they're about to be able to expose these people, and then all of a sudden they just get clipped or by themselves. I don't know. Well, dude, I am punchy, man, from all the dang children's Dayquils that I've been taking. It's been like 2 weeks of like 4 or 5 doses a day, and I feel like it's fried my damn brains. But dude, I want to get you to come back on again soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on these chapters a little bit more. I had a long conversation with Robert. I told him I felt like I was going to the principal's office and we needed to discuss my bad paper. But there's some things I want to fix, make it more clear. I was trying to cram it all into one chapter, and so I was
Yeah.
like being very brief on a lot of things. So now
Yeah.
that I split it into two chapters, I'm gonna go back and
Well,
readdress it, and then I'll send it to you, and maybe we'll do this again.
please do, man. I like I said before, man. I'm every time I read what you wrote, I'm super impressed. I've read a lot of these books and stuff like that, and you're tying in a lot of things from different areas that I've always heard and read about and whatnot. But you're doing it for your first go at a book, man. You're doing it at a level that's pretty damn impressive. I mean, in my very humble opinion, I don't know nothing about nothing, but
Thank you.
like
I'm working hard, so it means
it's
something to me.
yeah, it's really good, dude. Like it is a book, like, and I buy if it's got a Templar cross. If I'm in Barnes and Noble, it's got a Templar cross or a skull and bones symbol. Like I buy that book, and I have read some garbage, dude. There's two books upstairs right now that I have tried to read like 3 times, and they're just so bad and just the same rehashed old hat like
Yeah, yeah,
conspiracy, secret society, Dan Brown nonsense that like
yeah.
I want to finish them just to say that but they're that bad, and what you've got so far, man, is well beyond that. So
Thank you, sir.
congrats on that. Anything you want to plug?
Nope, I'm still a non-person on the internet, but someday we'll get that going. I tried to start a Twitter account, an X account,
Yeah.
and called myself Shakespeare is climate change. My handle was at the Global Theater, and I started attacking the British and got banned almost immediately, and they won't unban it. So,
What?
yeah,
For talking crap about the British?
Yeah, it was during that whole Iran bombing. So I was like going deep on Chatham House and how they had set up the
Yeah.
Iranians in the 20s and making these little tweets and,
And they
hashtagging.
banned you?
Oh, yeah, real quick.
Oh, there you go. There's where Elon's at. He's censoring fucking speak. Pardon my French. I really try not to cuss much on here, but like, what the hell?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'll try it again. I kind of feel like I had such a great idea and I liked my little Twitter handle or whatever, but we'll try again at some point. Maybe I won't attack the British so hard.
I'm too old. I don't get Twitter. I've tried to do it like 3 times. I've tried to start an account like 3 times, and I get on there and I'm like, I don't understand it. I don't get it.
I don't
I
like it.
give up every single time. I'm old. I like the Facebook. I'm not a boomer, but I feel like I live like one. But all right, brother, I'm gonna let you go before I say anything sillier. But great show, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Keep it up, dude. It's awesome stuff.
I will talk to you soon.
All
All
right, brother. Be good.
right. Yep. Take care.